Hello, it's Judith here with this week's video, and this week I'm going to talk about gratitude. Now, I'm finding that this is much more used and well known now than it used to be when I first started seeing clients. So I have clients who come to me who are already using gratitude as a way of helping their mental health, helping keep their mental state as positive as possible. And what it does is it reminds us of all the good things we have in our life. And even in the direst situations, there's some good to be found. So my mind immediately goes back to when we were all for 5 days in the hospital with my husband who was not going to recover. It was in many ways an awful situation, an exceedingly sad situation, a frustrating situation because we knew what had happened to him had probably been preventable. But we were all together as a family. We shared stories, from way back in my children's childhood to the present. He was at one point slightly more conscious, and therefore we could see him smiling, and he was able to nod or shake his head. And it in a sense was an awful and a wonderful experience, and it brought us together as a family. So even in the direst situations, there is something to be grateful for, even if it's the tiniest little thing, so it doesn't have to be something major. I've talked about something fairly major, but it could just be, at the moment, getting up and the sun shining, even for a little while, or you can see some flowers, tiniest little thing. It could just be that you woke up and you're still here, you're still able to be part of life. So why is it important? Why does it help? By nature, human beings have a negative bias. That goes right the way back to when we lived in very dangerous circumstances, and we had to be aware of risk, and we had to be ready to defend ourselves against other people or wild animals. And therefore, we were constantly on the lookout for things that could go wrong. Now, nowadays, for most of us, we're living in a developed country. Well, there's things we can complain about, lots of them, but, we don't have it that bad, really. So we're not constantly on the lookout for things that could go wrong, drastically wrong, i.e., things that could kill us. But we still have this negative bias, so we tend to focus on the negatives, not the positives. And the problem with that is if you're prone to anxiety, or even if you're not, if you're constantly going around the things that could go wrong, have gone wrong, aren't as you would like them to be, then you get down into this negative virtual spiral downwards. And, that just makes things worse. And it can become a habit, and it can, as I say, lead to anxiety. But we have to make an effort to be positive. Now, we're all different, and some people are naturally sunny, optimistic, see the good in everything. Some people are positively dreary and totally negative and see the bad in everything. Most of us fit somewhere in the middle. But if you are struggling with your mental health, certainly if you're struggling with your mindset and the positivity of your mindset, then gratitude can remind you of the things that you have got in your life, as opposed to constantly thinking of the things that you haven't got or the things that might go wrong. Because that way leads downwards, and thinking of the things that you have got and the things that are going right or may go right, it's fairly easy to switch your thinking if you're consciously thinking and aware of your thoughts to thinking, oh, I suppose it's going to rain tomorrow and I've got to go out and I'm going to get wet too. It might be fine tomorrow. It might even be sunny. You know, I might be able to actually go out in fewer clothes than I have been doing recently. So, you know, apart from looking at the weather forecast, and even if you do look at the weather forecast, nobody knows what it's going to be like tomorrow. So why not think of it being in a positive way rather than in a negative way? Now, we can't all do this all the time, but the more you do it, the more it shifts your mind out of that negative stance into a more positive approach to life. So it reminds us of the things that are good. As I say, even if they're little things, you know, I got brought a cup of tea and a biscuit in bed this morning. Or I didn't, by the way, unfortunately, but, you know, the little things doesn't have to be huge. You know, my child came up to me and gave me a big hug and said, I love you. You know, that's amazing, isn't it? There is a slight risk here. I get people coming to me quite a lot who sit in front of me and say, I don't know why I feel the way I do, because there's nothing wrong with my life. Everything's fine. You know, we're not super rich, but we're financially okay. My relationships are good. My kids are fine. My relationships with my kids are fine. I enjoy my job. You know, why do I feel this way when everything is apparently okay or better than okay? So there is a danger if you focus on the positive, you can ignore the negative things that are going on. And people who say that to me are often the people who've left it a long time to seek help, because they naturally are thinking of the positive perhaps, but certainly they are. What they say is, there's so many people much worse off than me. I don't deserve to feel like this, and I don't deserve help if I do feel like this, because there's people who really need help. And my answer to that is always, this is not a competitive sport. How you're feeling, regardless of the cause, is how you're feeling, and it is important. And if it's not the way you want to be feeling, then it is absolutely the right thing to do to seek help. So, got to be a bit careful you don't go too far the other way and try to convince yourself that everything's fine when it isn't. So there is, as in all things, there is a balance. So how do you do gratitude? Some people keep a gratitude journal. They like to write down their gratitudes. And that's fine if that works for you. I generally say to people, just as you're lying in bed at night, ready to go to sleep, just think of 3 things you're grateful for that have happened during the day that's coming to an end. So it takes almost no time at all. It has all the benefits I've talked about in turning our minds in a more positive direction. And generally it sends you off to sleep in a positive, not a negative way, which means the quality of your sleep is better. And that means that you are almost certainly going to have a better day tomorrow. So it's important, and it has a lot of effect for very little effort. So why don't you give it a try? When you go to bed tonight, unless you're absolutely exhausted and don't have time to think of anything, rather than dwelling on the what have I got to do tomorrow, what haven't I done today kind of chatter, just think about, now, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for today? I bought some flowers for my garden, and every time I look out of the window, I'm grateful for them because they're really pretty. I'm grateful that I feel well today and have got done all of the things that I wanted to get done today in a fairly smooth, relaxed way, not as I sometimes do, leaving it all to the last minute and then being in a panic. And I'm grateful. I met some neighbours, you know, we haven't chatted for ages, and we had a nice little chat outside as I was coming back from shopping, and they were all going off for a walk. We had a nice little chat and we had a laugh, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for having people like that in my life. So those are my gratitudes for today, but yours are your gratitudes. Give it a go tonight when you go to sleep. Just take a moment to think of 3 things that you're grateful for today. And they can be anything, and they can be huge, and they can be tiny, tiny microscopic things, but they're all doing their job. Okay then, lovely to talk to you, and I will be back again next week with whatever I decide to do for next week. I don't think I've totally made up my mind yet, so it's a surprise for both of us. Okay, you take care until next week. Bye.